1, which is a fact, is a compound fact. If I take the hyphen out, all authority runs backwards. Black pen, this would be a 3-4. The word the would now become an adverb, and the word for would become a pronoun. It's the only mathematical way it can happen. So frontwards and backwards, the math has to be correct. So when you, and this is only using one idea. Now, we have here the deed of trust for California. 12 states use the word mortgage, 38 use the word deed of trust. Now, instead of using numbers here, we use color codes. You can't see what the words are from back there, but you can see the color from back there. So the pink, it represents the adverb. The verb is represented by green. So, and then the adjective and the pronoun are both left neutral without coloring those. So you know it's always going to be a, first word is going to be an adjective, second word is going to be a pronoun. And these are how many mistakes are on your deed of trust. 4,700 of them to be exact. And if you modify something or you color it, that's prejudice, that's perjury, because you're modifying it what a fact is. There's 300 words per page.
Yes, sir.
If you color it, it's what?
By coloring it, they used to take the words and put them together after they saw us putting numbers on back in 2000. So the courts and the attorneys put the words touching each other, so there'd be no place to put the numbers. So we color coded it. So they went back to single spacing again, so we could put the numbers back in. Then, when they realized that we could prove their fraud with the numbers,
And the color coding.
then they said, okay, we'll screw up and prove he doesn't know what he's doing. Now, this is just how many adverbs appear in 300 words, which is illegal. And these are your prepayment riders that they put on the back, how many modifications they do.
Illegal.
See, now, from back there, you can see the color. And from seeing the color, you can see the value of 4,700 mistakes certified frontwards and backwards to be a trick of adverbs, adjectives, and turning all the facts into verbs. You're only allowed one verb in a sentence. Some of these sentences have 8 verbs in them. Okay, then, the position, what we used to call the preposition, as we were taught when you were 10 years old. The preposition then went to what was called the article. But a vowel and 2 consonants, which is AR, the word art itself is an illusion, creation. So the word art, A-R-T, the first 2 letters create because the word tickle is also a word, but article is a no contract word because LC, a tick is small, and this is contract. So it's a no small contract is an article. Now article would be my, it's for my pen, for his pen, for your pen, for her pen. You see, I changed the definition of the article, and I changed the ownership of the pen. If I say for your pen, for my pen, for his pen, for her pen, I changed the preposition now. Instead of the article of ownership, I changed it again. We have 38 articles and 68 prepositions. 68 times 38 is 2,000 divided by 2 is 1,000. And 100 of them you will never use, not even in any condition of logic. So you got 900 definitions for every word. And if I can change this times 900, 900 times 900 is 810,000. Times 900 is 720 million. Times 900 is 640 billion. Times 900 is 540 trillion. So you can see, in a 6-word sentence, we're dealing with 540 trillion variables for one sentence. And he says, well, that's impossible for us to do that. And that's just for one sentence. I says, well, I wrote a 195-page book here, And it's all mathematically certified, frontwards and backwards in quantum language. All of our lawsuits, 12,000 of them, are done the same way. So don't tell me it can't be done. So then we have a lodio, which is your article. We had to change that. LO is location, DI is original, AL is contract. This is called parse. If you want to learn about parse, you can pick up a hymn book from any religion that sings songs. And every single syllable that goes with the sound of music is dedicated to a parse of a word. And therefore, if you pick up a hymn book, and then you get the book, the dictionary book by the Masons on parse, you can look up the definitions of all the parses written into a hymn. Do you know that almost half of all the words in hymns mean the word no contract because it's a vowel, A, E, I, O, and U, followed by 2 consonants? So you're really singing no contract, no contract, no contract, no contract, no contract, until you're so brainwashed that when somebody shows you quantum and you actually understand it, you go into shock. Your brain rewrites itself in 5 minutes. You will stand there in goosebumps all over your body, and you will shake as your brain is coming to awareness that you've been lied to since you were 9 months old. And when you make that transition, you can never go back into the world of fiction. It just doesn't happen. You pick up a newspaper, a magazine, anything document that's handed to you to read, the only thing you can do is syntax it. When you realize how big the lie is and how the words have been misrepresented, it's really has an effect on your belief systems.
Very humbling.
Now the 7, the preposition was always in front of the article, which was in front of the pronoun,
Now.
the noun,
Oh, no.
which is a N-O-U-N, which means no. So if you have no position, preposition, because pre, P-R-E, P-R-A-E-I-O, and U mean no. I don't care what word you put them in front of. You got practice. Attorneys have a practice. A-T-T, no contract, and they practice. P-R-A. T-I is title, C-E is contract. No title contract is what they practice. And then you have a article, which is an illusion, contract. And then you have they told you if you have no position and you have no small contract, then you have a no-no. And they advertised it to you, and you always thought prepositional phrases were cool.
But you were desensitized.
Yeah.
You've been desensitized at such a young age that you can't assimilate what's genuine and what's authentic. And so this is why we're trying to bring the consciousness up in the knowledge to the people, and then give the people a chance to vote us in to make those changes so we take out those subliminal messages so we can have authenticity in our thinking, so we don't go to war and we don't create all the strifes and have tolerance for we the people.
Then the next thing they did to us was they used past time words, which was ed, all words ending in ed, and the word from. Future time words were pre and to, to. And so anything that's in the future doesn't exist. The past always comes before the future, just like 8 comes in front of 9. So we accounted for the 10 parts of speech, but where's your now time? See, they never told you where now time is, and you always live in now time. You can only be damaged in now time. You only exist in now time. So you had to change your volition of thinking.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if it's an N-O-W, does N-O, does that not like eliminate now time? I use current, but.
Okay.
Current is good, but you put a diphthong over you put a, yeah, sure.
It just, you N-O and now. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, here we have the word
Okay.
known, right? This comes from knowledge. I'll get it.
All right.
Here you have a ledger, and here you have now time ledger, and you have to know what you're doing for your math, because math is no one's ever gone to war over a math problem in history of mankind, so math is a correct factor, especially when you're going to deal with a ledger. When you have the word now, K-N-O-W, you have the word own, you have now time,
Yeah, that way.
and you have the word know, K-N-O-W. Now you have to put this, we went researched,
A dip-
and you have to have a line over OW that's Russian, which makes A, E, I, O, and U, and sometimes W, sometimes Y. My, by. See, the word try. This becomes the vowel now. But when you're dealing with the W factor, you have law, which is fiction, and then you have law, which is fact, with that line over AW. That's 1775, or 1750, Russia. And then they struck it.
And so you put that over the OW in the now.
The same thing, right. And that captures that. So
Okay.
you don't have the word no.
Oh, okay, I didn't. Well,
Yeah, okay,
okay.
and actually-
These are
Diphthong.
secrets.
Look up the word diphthong.
You
D-I-P-H,
have,
T-H-O-N-G.
yeah, in English language, our PH is F, but in all foreign languages that use the ABC alphabet use the word F, the letter F for
Yeah.
PH. And they dropped that. Like phone in England is F-O-N-E.
Good question, though.
But if you underline it, does it?
Then it
It's
creates,
not underlined, you have to put the line above the
Okay.
you
OW.
put the line above the OW.
Same thing, word law.
Okay.
It creates a diphthong.
What was that?
Every
Diphthong.
dictionary that's published has this information, but who reads a dictionary? When was the last time you read your prefixes or your suffixes or your styles manual in a dictionary? You know, your big Webster's dictionary, that one that's 6 inches thick, last one published was 1906.
Sorry, it's,
And it has all this information in it. In 1906 is when all the laws in the United States, which were handled by numbers, like the Sherman Law, were then transferred into codes, specific codes, with a numbering system on it, because numbers could be very easily, it was easier to catalog. And that's when the Webster's Dictionary was also cataloged with the Styles Manual. Now, if you think the Webster's 6-inch dictionary, or the Funkin' Webster's Dictionary, which is also 6 inches thick, or Encyclopedia Britannica's dictionary is 6 inches thick, you have 3 2-inch volumes. You have World Book, which is 3 2-inch volumes.
Oxford.
The Oxford is about a foot thick, but the Cornell University Dictionary is 4 feet thick. And what they did there is they took every word on planet Earth. Now, every word was also identified by a judge, established a definition of a word because of the condition of how it was used. I'll give you an example. Here I have a pen, P-E-N. It's used for writing. If you look up any dictionary, it's going to say it's a writing instrument. But if I took this pen and I put it into a prison system, the next guy using it's going to do this, or he's going to do this and make a stabbing tool out of it. So now it's a concealed weapon for stabbing somebody and causing harm. You get 10 years in prison for a concealed weapon, 10 years for assault with a deadly weapon. So you get a 20-year prison sentence because you played games with the word pen. So be careful who you talk to, how you present yourself, because you could wind yourself up in jail real easy. My buddy did that. Police officer pulls him over. He's an electrician. He's got copper in his car because he cuts off, he just put in a 600 amp system. So he's got copper wires 1 inch in diameter, about the A long, but he's got duct tape tied around the end, because when you pull the heavy wire through the cables, which are 4 inches in diameter, you've got to put duct tape around a rope and then pull it through. When you get it to the other end, you cut it off with your big clippers. He's got the scrap laying in his car to go to the junkyard, because they're paying $3.85 a pound for copper. So the cop says, well, you have a club. He says, no, it's scrap copper. He says, no, it's a concealed weapon. I'm going to give you a ticket for carrying a concealed weapon in your car. He says, oh, I suppose you're going to do the same thing with my ballpoint pen, because you can stab somebody with it. Oh, you're confessing that you have a pen with $2,500 fine. You had to pay it. 30 days in jail, too, for playing games. But I happened to be at that specific hearing, and that happened in Duluth, Minnesota, at the court. And guess what happened? The judge, I'm in there, and I can introduce myself as a federal judge. So the judge gets up, and he walks outside. His brother-in-law's there, who's a plumber. He says, here, put my robe on. go in there and take $2,500 off this guy and put him in jail for 30 days. So the plumber puts on his brother-in-law's robe, and I'm out there standing right next to the guy listening to what's gonna happen next. And he walks in there and says, bailiff, take this man and put him in jail for 30 days, I want a $2,500 fine. Because they knew he had $2,500 cash on him when they brought him in, because he just sold his motorcycle. And after that happened, I went down to see Barbara Crabb at the federal court in Madison, Wisconsin, and Lake County was shut down. They fired all the people that were working in the court system, they were shut down for 6 weeks because of that little incident that took place, showing that there are no laws, rules, regulations, or code. This building here is a vessel and dry dock called the courthouse. And in their vessel and dry dock, they weren't on the state of Wisconsin. You know what the word state of Wisconsin, state of California means? It's the name of the vessel of the courthouse in dry dock. You live in the territory of the California territory, folks. You live in the territory of Georgia, territory of Wisconsin.
Norway.
All road signs are the distance between one vessel in dry dock called the courthouse and another vessel in dry dock called the courthouse. That's how those road signs got up there with the numbers on them. You don't believe me? Go out and measure your highways and check to see where your county seat is, where the courthouse is to the next courthouse. Federal courthouse to federal courthouse. Or state courthouses between counties. That's why you have county signs, different road names and distances, but on that name of that road, there's gonna be a courthouse. That's how they break everything up.
We have methods around that, which I'll get into later.
Yeah, this is all part of the tricks and traps that are
So each
helping.
road is basically assigned to a courthouse?
Yes.
Yes, it is. And that's why when you get a speeding ticket, always on your speeding ticket, the sheriff or the hypo, highway patrol always puts them on which mile marker you were at.
Right. So it shows you what jurisdiction you're in based on that mile marker
Correct.
location. Not that anybody, but as a secondary level of accuracy. And how does accuracy spelled? ACC? No contract. A vowel and two consonants. Remember that. As I speak, I will use words that are a vowel and two consonants. But I'm saying that because these are no contract words, and I will stop myself and identify why it happens. Because every law, rule, regulation, and code, your traffic tickets have 400 mistakes on them. Grammatics mistakes. And if you hold it up to the light, you have a watermark box around both sides of it. Everything on your ticket is in a box, which is an enclosed area and can't be considered. Therefore, because the law written for the number in the box is also written in adverb verb and says nothing. So because you have all these different levels of fiction on top of fiction, the oath of office for every single politician, every single police officer, every single military, everything is based on a dangling participle verb. And if you have a dangling participle verb, it's illegal to end the sentence that way. But when you go into the mechanics of the writing that is used, all the advertising that's put up on in the courthouses, every single one of them go back to a no contract scenario. Use a vowel and two consonants as a no contract scenario. Russell and I looked up every single word in English language under A, E, I, O, and U for a vowel and two consonants and all the synonyms and all the different definitions. That's an 8,000-hour exercise. Him and I worked on just that one thing for 2 years, doing nothing else. Side by side, 16 hours a day to get that and prove that fact. And we have proved that fact in any other translation to any other language. Because my website's written in 150 different languages with no translation deviation. If a language does not, like Hebrew, does not have A, E, I, O, and U because they're hollow sounds. So we have to put those back in. But they don't use prepositional phrases either. So we leave our own prepositional phrases in the location. Arabic doesn't use prepositional phrases. So we put in the prepositional phrases and we do it in a mechanical way. We don't do it as a sentence structure horizontal. We do it like this.
So when we write bank contracts in Arabic and we do the translation, the English sentence will be frontwards and backwards horizontally, and when we write the Arabic and we're doing from nation to nation for global stuff, we put their sentences like this and let the people contracting in, postmaster, bankers, write in their facts this way. That way we lose no deviation between English and Arabic when we do global financial stuff.
I have a question. I noticed you're writing everything in caps.
Conditional reflex. It's called shout. Now, shout is a command. It's not an order, because the word order is spelled O-R-D. It means no contract. That's why everything written in the laws are written in upper and lower case, because they're whispers, and also in adverb verbs, so they say nothing at any time.
Except for in one spot, and that's in Federal Rules Civil Procedure 44.1, and they go like this. This deals with foreign courts. They go.
We had to. Oh, the court, yeah.
Yeah, what,
That's all you need, just the
Well,
court.
Well, this is what it says. And this is under Federal Rules Civil Procedure 44.1 under foreign judges, because all judges fly yellow fringe flags or vertically suspended flags. So they hang their flag vertically this way, so it suspends the contract within the courtroom. So they go, laws of boxing, eliminate the T, he court, not jury.
Bracket.
Bracket. This is why we put judges in judges boxes and jury in jury boxes. So anything they say can't be considered.
It can't be seen or heard. When you have the word he court, he is an adverb making court into a verb. Where are you going to put the verb court? State of California. That was an adverb making California dangling participle verb. So you get a verb court for a verb country. Then you have not,
Not jury, right after it.
well, you don't have,
That's
or
what
no jury.
Well, it says not jury, but I'm just saying
Okay.
what they say.
And then no is a negative. You can't prove a negative of anything. JU means no. And the word RY is contract.
And that's the only place in law that you're gonna see the capital shout. And it's in every civil rules or civil procedure for every state.
Then when you're dealing, when you write, you want to learn how to syntax, or how to creatively write syntax, you do it vertical until your brain can adapt. So you make flashcards for the, of the, is, are, with the, of the. Now, yeah, we'll take that off.
Yeah.
So it's for the knowledge. So this would be a claimant's knowledge. Claimant's knowledge of the facts. Is or are with the claim possessive claim. See, with is a possessive. So you have a possessive claim because as an individual, you look around the room and you accumulate information. There's 1,000 pieces of information in this room that you can see. Now you're going to take that information, you're going to store it in your computer, your brain. Just like we have our computers, we put information into it. You have to think of what you want to do in the form of facts that you put into your computer, and this is, the is-are is thinking, which means motion. That's why the courts have you file motions, because you must think. And you have to establish your knowledge. Doesn't the judge say, did you go to school? You have a job? Can you drive a car? He walks you through a series of questions to establish your ability of education, how much educational facts you have absorbed, and then are you going to understand how to motion those facts into a thinking condition of a claim when he says, do you understand? He just asked you a whole series of adverb verb questions that said nothing in a box on a different plane, because he's sitting up here on plane number 1, and you're over on plane number 5. Here's the petitioner and the vassalee, or the claimant and a defendant. So you're gonna go ahead and say, yeah, I understand, and then you say you understand, UN means no, DER is contract, stand is standing, so you have no contract standing, now you're mute before the court. What happens when you're mute before the court? Then the judge can't see or hear you, and neither can the prosecution. So with the possessive claim of the contract,
And these prepositional phrases are cause, consequence, the verb of thinking, possession assignment, possession assignment, possession assignment. all
see, now we're gonna break this down further with the possession claim of a contract. Well, with the correct sentence, structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar of the rules, regulations, codes, with the venue, with the avoidance by the perjury. Now, if you read this backwards, by becomes for, with becomes of. Then you bring in your verb as your second condition, and of is with is of, and it becomes, these are the opposite prepositions. So for the perjury of the avoidance is with the rules, regulations, and codes of the correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar, with the contract of the possessive claim with the facts by the claimant's knowledge. See, now the authority going backwards says the same thing as the authority going frontwards. The unique thing about our technology is all these facts are still facts. And the order of operations going backwards is just like having a math problem. If we go to a math problem,
On the knowledge, should I claim with knowledge, should I put the?
Yes.
of the OW?
You can,
Okay,
but you have,
it's a compound.
it's a compound, so you're okay there.
okay, cool.
If it was now, that would be different.
So you have 1 plus 2 equals 3, and 3 minus 2 equals 1. See, so we're going to reduce this into linear mathematics. Now, when you do a math problem, you've got a whole number coming in, you got a whole number coming out, you got a whole number conclusion, and you got a whole number to start with to work the problem backwards. So these are facts. Now an equal sign, and I don't care what type of math you want to do, add, subtract, multiply, divide, sine, cosine, tangent, trigonometry, calculus, equal signs do not affect any of the math that you're doing. Those are conclusions.
Yes.
So they're going to be your conjunctions. Because they don't have any modifications to change anything in the formula. Now you have a plot. You have a plus 2, and you've got a negative 2. Well, when you do graphing in school, and you graphed, you were in motion going across your number systems. So because you're going from plus to minus or minus to plus, these are called verbs. We took the 2, we gave that the verb thinking. Now after we factor that out then, what we have left is we have a plus and a minus, and that was called the preposition or the position. For the bridge is over the water. For the water is under the bridge. Over and under are opposite prepositions, and both pictures are identical. And that's what we're doing here is we're showing you if it's true for a picture, then it's true for the values of the logic of sentence structuring as well. Then when we translate it to any other foreign language on planet Earth, we use the same things. We establish, when I broke the mathematical interface between the Chinese language with 10,000 symbols and what their prepositional phrases were, I says, do you have a symbol for the word for? And they says, well, yeah, we do. We have a symbol for the word of. You have a symbol for the word with and a symbol for the word by. And they said, yes, these are the symbols. You have a symbol for the word the, an article. They said, yes. Okay, the only thing I had to do is plug in the noun of the symbol, like what is a pen. And when I asked the symbol through my Google Translator, it gave me the English translation. So when I went to China, I took my phone, I put my Google Translator thing on, put this around my neck, get into a cab, and I said, I want to go to the Summer Palace. And this phone translated my English into, I want to go to the Summer Palace, and it printed it out so they could read it in Chinese, Mandarin. Then he spoke back to me and told me what the fare was in Chinese. And then the phone spoke to me in English, telling me what the fare was to go there. Just like the universal translators on Star Trek, you know, where he wears his badge, which is a universal translator. And you know what? I went around, I spent 22 days the first time in China and 10 days in Hong Kong and Macau at the casinos for 2 more days. And I didn't have trouble with anybody. I even had translators assigned to me, but I could do quite well on my own. I did the same thing in France, Germany, and Italy, Switzerland, Norway. So it's that Google Universal Translator is really unique. Now, using that as a base science, they said we couldn't write a English translation in quantum for Chinese in 9 months. I did it in 45 minutes over lunch. How? I went ahead and I established the symbols for these words, the symbol for the, a, and an, or this also. And then whatever the fact was, every English fact has a Chinese translated word. And so I could translate the technology that I was there over lunch and have it printed out immediately. And the computer did all the work for me through my Google Translator. I just had to organize how the program was to be read. And I printed out these patents for the technicians, which only spoke Chinese. And then he said, can you do this in Russian? I says, yeah, Control-Shift. Took all of everything that I had just put in the computer in Chinese and translated into Russian. Then I says, well, what about German? It's our 3rd biggest trade partner. Yeah, 4 minutes later, the computer printed out all this stuff in German. How about Italy? Spanish, Arabic, Indian, Thai, Japanese. And this thing, in a matter of seconds, the computer rewrote everything mathematically certified frontwards and backwards, and on my website is 150 different languages frontwards and backwards on a global basis. I've got university professors from their respected countries screaming at me that you can't do this, you can't establish these secrets because you just disqualified our universities, our colleges. And so, what's that?
I'm just gonna see where we're at here, just the order of operations, just wanna see where people are at.
Oh,
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
This here is it's a game, it's a math problem. The average person takes 2 hours to figure out.
Can anybody figure that out? Just out of curiosity.
Well, first we gotta finish this.
Okay, you finish that and then we'll get into.
And this,
5, 4, 3, 2.
so these as the parts of speech, this was the mathematical interface. You know, I spent 3 years, 1,000 hours, 1,000 days working out this to get my children back. The judge said to me, when you can show me the mathematical interface and grammar, you will be able to write a lawsuit to get your children back and not make a fool of yourself. And the first thing I did was prosecute that judge and had him disbarred. I got my kids back. So the technology was sound. And the secret math interface on all 5,000 languages was 1 + 2 = 3, 3 - 2 = 1. The smallest of things, the simplest of things was the answer. And it was an elusive of human beings for 8,500 years. Never figured it out. And from this one math problem, I could prove everything that was wrong, everything that was right, and over I've written 23 books now, put up a 400-page website, and done 2,500 seminars. I've done 38 live television shows, wrote the programs on the 9/11 disaster, and got all the settlements, disqualified 3,800 illegal lawsuits from the 9/11 case. Got independence for Hawaii, wrote the lawsuit that won $880,000 from England for the Solomon Island massacre of 1929 that nobody would touch until 2002 when I was over there, and I went ahead and broke the code on the case, wrote the lawsuit, and was awarded in 2012 that the Solomon Island and Guadalcanal survivors received $880 million from England.
When we were at the United Nations and David presented himself as a witness, I can tell you that they knew who he was. They said, "You're the guy." And we presented our bank charters because we were presenting our bank charters in quantum grammar called the Global Banking Constitution to all nations on the planet, giving it away, just showing them what technology is coming, how we're going to be moving monies, what were the qualifications for moving values from point A to point B, and what were the criteria for countries to engage with that, or to commune with that. Sorry about the negative word.
When people take and they try to do things horizontally, they're trying to overwrite a horizontal romance with your left brain. Your left brain is romance. Your right brain, however, is mathematics, is your logic center. So when I gave you this in vertical rather than horizontal, I showed you a math problem. Your brain is going to graph this on your left, in your right brain, and it's going to understand that if you make flashcards, put them on the ground, write words and move the words around, so you're not writing. Now writing is a skill, it's an art form, just like art. But when you put things into flashcards and blocks on the ground, your mind is going to start forming puzzles. It's going to look at it as a puzzle of blocks, just like when you play with Legos. I don't care if you're an adult. You sit down with your grandkids, you're going to build something with Legos or Lincoln Logs, because it's mathematics and it's relaxing to you because you can't lie about a math problem. Can't lie about mechanics. So this goes in to your logic side of the brain. The minute you get this, it overwrites your left side, and you can't look at anything without looking at it from a mathematical procedure. Then when you read our numbering codes on when we syntax our lawsuits, give you an idea. We have a, let's see. Go ahead.
All right.
Put a little plug in
Yeah,
there
yeah,
for a
yeah,
minute
but-
to get this out.
What this means is,
Russ,
well, do you guys know the answer?
I remember it.
You know the answer, don't you? Your numbers are your facts. If you don't put your functions, which are the plus and the equal sign, in the right location, you get the wrong answer. Same thing holds true with the order of operation of words. So you have 4 plus 5 equals 3 to the second. Right? Because 9 equals 9. So if you drop out the procedure, you don't do the correct procedure, you can't come up with the right conclusion. Because 9 equals 9. So what we're showing you is that the function of how we move things around is relevant to how you're going to contract and how people contract when you're deciding to make a vote. Because if you have the wrong function, you're going to get the wrong outcome over and over and over again. So putting in the right correct variable and the right function on how to vote for a president as a citizen of this country is one of the most valuable things you can know. Because then you can find out who actually has your best concerns in mind. Because as a public servant, that's what we have to be cognizant of. We can show you a construct, but as we put ourselves into public positions and become public servants, then the values of what we have to do change. So you need to be cognizant of that.
See, you have 3,800 different branches of government controlled by the Postmaster General. The president is no more than a puppet. He's where you direct your attention to redirect your anger. So he takes all the flack. That's why he becomes famous.
Let me show you how the illusion works so you can see it in your own minds. The Super Bowl was on February 1st. They got everybody in the United States looking at Super Bowl, and then they had do a little tiny announcement at 2 o'clock on Super Bowl Sunday, which nobody paid attention to. They switch out postmaster generals. But they got everybody looking at the Super Bowl, and nobody's paying attention to what's really going on, which is the shipping wars that you are all in. So,
The
go ahead
real
and take
game.
over. I won't get into
The real game.
the real game.
December 12, 2012, now I have prosecuted all the federal judges in Honolulu, Hawaii. I've been in Honolulu, Hawaii since 1995. I was elected in 1997 to be the king of Hawaii when all the kapunas, the 72 families, got together and appointed me to be the king of Hawaii because I wrote the Constitution for Hawaii that was won at The Hague. And from that, Bill Clinton had to apologize to Hawaii for stealing the Hawaiian Islands in 1893 and again in 1959 for statehood. Now, a unique thing took place. The United States of America in 1893 was in bankruptcy. First bankruptcy was in September 17th, 1782. That was domestic in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 7 years later, that expired because it was on September 17th, 1789. Rothschild then buys the bankruptcy of England, which is international, turning it into a 70-year international bankruptcy. That runs till September 17th, 1859, plus 45-day trust law comes up to November 2nd, presidential election day. Before the trust expired, we had to elect a new trustee for the trust, which was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln doesn't take office until 90 days later, from November 2nd until February 2nd, 1860, three-day rescission law. Fort Sumter gets bombed, and we now create the Civil War. Now, when the South left the North was sovereign. They were not in bankruptcy. Because the bankruptcy ended for the North was sovereign. So you have two sovereign nations being split in half. The United North had no cash, but the South had gold, silver, tobacco, and cotton, and had trade with Europe, so they were very rich. And they had everybody, because of the money, had educations. They had military schools, and were Lee was a real good general, had good education. And the North had arrogance, but they had the machinery. So the North renewed the bankruptcy, Lincoln did, for another 70 years.
You
And
had to pick up 5 states, though.
yeah, so they lost the 5, and so they picked up Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And so we went ahead and
Further
they still had 13 states that were involved with the North, and then the southern states were sovereign under gold and silver because they had gold silver banking, where the North had debt banking with bankruptcy. So during the course of the war, President Grant was the Postmaster General, who was also a military general. Lincoln gets assassinated, and so the Postmaster General was elected to the presidency. Benjamin Franklin was the first Postmaster General, so he goes on the $100 bill because the decimal point for 100 is 1.00. Grant was the Postmaster General of a country divided in half, who became a president, so he went on the $50 bill.
50-50.
Lincoln was the first Postmaster General of Illinois for 20 years, so he was put on the penny, or on the $5 bill, but he went on the penny as the first postmaster who became in charge of the second international bankruptcy. So that's why he's on the penny and the 5. Washington got the quarter and the $1 bill. Now, the reason he's on the $1 bill, because he was only a letter carrier for the Continental Congress, and a letter carrier is only 1/100th the importance of a Postmaster General. So he wound up on the $1 bill. But he was also a 34-degree Mason, Freemason, so therefore the Masonic, all the information on the $1 bill is Masonic. And then Jackson was the 20, and Jefferson was on the 2, because he was a Postmaster General, who became the second president, and the 20 for 20. And Hamilton was the 10th Postmaster General for the $10 bill. And that's how those got placed in location. Now you take the bankruptcy, September 17, 1789, 1859, and 70 years later is September 17, 1929, plus 45 days is November 2nd, 1929. But you have to give 5-day notice if you're going to cancel your contract, your trust. So England says we're closing all banks and credit unions on October 29, 1929. And the stock market is margined at 95 to 5, and it crashes because the money has been inflated. For every $5, they made $100. And when they went to collect, there was no money, so it collapsed the banks for the next 10 years. And there was no money in the United States. Then in 1939, the war breaks out, and we go ahead and get ourselves into World War II. Now, World War II was, Roosevelt needed to get the people involved because we were an isolated country. Fascism had to be stopped because of the Nazis, but Congress didn't have any way to get the United States involved. So we go back to Hawaii. When was the New World Order created? October 22nd, 1871. Rothschild goes to Hawaii because Hawaii was the center of the coal, C-O-A-L, coal industry in the Pacific Ocean. No steamer could go from the Asia to the west coast of California without stopping in Hawaii for coal. The British, the Portuguese, the French, Spaniards, and the United States and the Germans all wanted control of Hawaii. So on October 22nd, 1871, the banking started with the New World Order to take over Hawaii. So they took all the gold and silver because of whaling. There was 1,000 whalings, 200,000 whales a year taken in the Hawaiian Islands. And they went ahead and they put money in place. All the money had railroad trains, stagecoaches, Pony Express, and shipping, pictures on all the money. So we're dealing with transportation. The post office controls the DOT, Department of Transportation, and the post office also controls the Treasury. This is a worldwide issue, by the way. So the post office, called the Universal Postal Union, goes ahead and captures Hawaii first to control the entire Pacific. Then, in 1 year after that, under Title 46, Chapter 781, which is 1 year maritime law of salvage, it's the 22nd of October, 1872. Now you had 45-day trust law, and it's December 6th, which is the end of the salvage claim. And on December 6, 1872, King Kamehameha V, which is the last reigning monarch to control all the land in Hawaii under the Bishop's Trust, is killed by assassination poison. So now they have, the Masons go ahead and they publish an article in a newspaper on January 8th ordering all Masons on the Hawaiian Islands to come to Honolulu to Lodge Number 1. Lodge Number 1 is also the Supreme Court of Hawaii. Immigrations, Customs, in the center of the post office for the Hawaiian Islands, also the Center Bank of Hawaii. All done in one building right across the street from the Iolani Palace. So there's an underground tunnel that connects them. Now, all the queens and kings of the Hawaiian Islands, when they became queens and kings, had to join the Eastern Star and Masons. The minute you become an Eastern Star and Mason, you must surrender your kingship, queenship, or presidency. So therefore, Queen Iolani was not a queen anymore. She was an Eastern Star 34 degree as a figurehead speaker under the puppet master of the Postmaster General, which was across the street. The Postmaster General in 1873 now publishes an article to have all Masons come to the Iolani Palace. Now, all records in Hawaii were destroyed from 1869 to 1875. So Hightower and I went to the Archive Center looking for information, and all there was a 3x5 card in the card catalog. It had a number on it. The number was a microfiche number. The microfiche number led to the newspaper published on January 8th, 1873. We were looking for the dimension of the flag. The flag then was 8 stripes, and today's Hawaiian flag only has 7, so it was the wrong flag. So now you go ahead, and while he's looking at the flag, I'm like looking at the obituaries down below. In German, French, Portuguese, and English, ordering all Masons in the Hawaiian Islands, because there was a Masonic eye and a Masonic level, to order all the Masons to come to to Lodge Number 1 to pay homage to King Kamehameha V, exactly 45 days after he dies. So it takes it published on the 8th, 3 days by steamer to go out to Kona and Hilo. 3 days back, that's 6. 8 and 6 is 14. And on the January 14th is the 45 day after December 6th. Now you go ahead and you have a 3-day rescission law. The 3-day rescission law goes back 6,500 years in history, all the way back to 4700 BC, where the Pharaoh set this up, and he was a Mason. So these are timelines that have never changed. 70-year international bankruptcy is a 6,500-year-old law.
Thank goodness.
And because I'm a Mason, I'm a 92nd degree Mason, by the way, because I have the only math code translation of all the Masonic history of the world. Okay, now, we're up to January 14th, 1873. We have a 3-day rescission law goes into effect, which means on January 17th, 1873, the 20-year death moratorium that was established by King Kamehameha I in 1848 goes into effect. And in 1848, King Kamehameha I said, a white man from America will come to Hawaii and set Hawaiians free with a bird. When I went to Hawaii in May of 1995, a wild female sparrow flew out of a tree, landed on my index finger, and sat there for 2 hours and 45 minutes. As I wrote the Constitution for the Hawaiian Islands, and Bill Clinton had to sign it, and Hawaii got their independence on that day. And from there, I was elected to be the king of Hawaii. But going back to 1873, the 20-year moratorium goes into effect, and now it's 1893, January 17th. U.S. troop ship pulls in, get cold, like they do every day. Postmaster General tells the Admiral, who's a Mason, we're going to take over the Hawaiian Islands now. It's been 20 years, and all Hawaiians are dead because their names are capitalized.
Hail.
And so in 1893, Hawaii then becomes a territory of the United States. And we bring our troops on shore to protect the Hawaiian Islands so that nobody else can cross the Pacific without our permission or by our call, C-O-A-L. It's all about power. Then you go ahead and you add another 70 years, 1872, October 22nd plus 45 days is December 7th. And 70-year international bankruptcy is December 7th, 1941, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. The end of the first international bankruptcy, where the Postmaster General of Tokyo and the Postmaster General of Honolulu, Hawaii go to war. But they jumped the timeline. It was 8 o'clock in the morning is when it expired. And the pilot, captain pilot of the attack group, wanted to make a statement at the rising sun at 6:30, 90 minutes too early, and bombed only postal vessels. The post office controlled the military ships and planes, and they were the only thing bombed. And every single bomb had a $1 Japanese stamp on it, airmail stamp, delivering the airmail to the Postmaster General of the Hawaiian Islands. No civilian targets were hit. But they put a stamp on it just to make it legal.
I believe they
So
found
when
one.
Nagasaki and Hiroshima were bombed, I've got the video of the Postmaster General in 1945 slapping a $1 stamp on on a little boy and signing his name across it and smiling into the camera. We're sending the airmail back to Japan just to make it legal.
Yep.
And that ended the war.
And now it's,
Now you know the rest of the story.
well, let's count the 70.
Okay.
All right.
Then you go 70 years from Pearl Harbor Day, and it's 2011, Pearl Harbor Day. And no law becomes legal for 90 days, which is March 5th. You have a 3-day rescission law, which is March 8th, 2012. And then you have a 1-year moratorium under salvage claim, which is March 8th, 2013. And in 2013, my federal building that has been standing in Wailuku, Hawaii, where I live, and was my federal court, was there to prosecute the federal judges and the state judges for treason against the people through fictitious conveyance of language. And
The year before that, under the one-year salvage, David and I walked into the head post office.
oh, we'll get to that after I finish this.
Yeah, that's.
The name of the judge was Susan O.K.
Sweet.
Mulloway. She was appointed by President Obama. And when I went to court with 22 of my foreclosure clients in Honolulu, the judge says, well, who are all these people? I said, well, they're my clients. I said, by the way, Judge Kern, I have a warrant for your arrest. Give me a warrant for my arrest. I says, Dorothy Lamb case, 12 years ago.
Corporation case, written
He
in
goes,
now.
oh my God, he says, you're that David Wynn Miller. He goes, you're the federal judge we appointed, and you prosecuted 22 judges, 12 U.S. attorneys, and 2 clerks for treason against the people, and was upheld by the United States Supreme Court in The Hague in a conference call. Lasted 3 hours and 15 minutes. That legalized my federal judge position and my king position of Hawaii. But I'm only a king of grammar, just grammar. But grammar controls contract, and contract owns everything. That's how I got that.
There it is.
So then we went ahead, and Judge Kobachi comes walking in. And I says, you know, I got a warrant for your arrest too. He turns right around and walks back out, and then Mulloway comes walking in. He says, I know you don't have a warrant for my arrest. He says, I was appointed by Obama. He says, well, okay, so be back on the 17th of April, and bring all your people with you. So we showed up. And all the judges were on an airplane to San Francisco, off island, so they couldn't appear in court. So they locked down the courthouse, but I had an order opening the courthouse up, so I walked down to the clerk's office, I filed and ordered the courthouse open as the chief federal judge of the courthouse, which gave me jurisdiction over all the Hawaiian Islands then as a chief federal postal judge. And I was a chief federal postal judge at that point when we did that. Then Mulloway comes back with this little thing here, order, which means no contract, directing David Wynn Miller as a non-de-guerre dead person, to show cause. To is an adverb in future, they ain't making show cause to be an adjective pronoun. Why he, adverb verb, now calling me a verb, should not, adverb verb, be required, no contract in past tense. To is an adverb in future tense, obtain, ob means no, obtain, which is an adjective of leave. Of court, of is an adverb making court a verb. Before filing, adverb verb, any new actions. Any is an adverb, new is a adjective, and action then becomes a no contract pronoun. So then I went in and I syntaxed this here, showing how many mistakes they made, and then wrote a lawsuit and sued her for fraud. And filed this with the, President Obama, saying, you know, you appointed yourself a judge with a 2nd grade reading level, send it registered mail, so it's a registered mail case. And I says, I'm the chief federal judge, and she has no authorization to babble, so I hereby charge her with treason against the people, as I am the elected king of Hawaii, to get off my island.
Walking through the post office from
Is she
Pearl,
gone?
out of Pearl.
Huh?
Is it gone?
No,
Well,
okay.
she's still in the federal courthouse. It always said federal courthouse. On that day, they took the federal courthouse and they chopped it off, the word off the court building. Now it's just called United States Courthouse. United